Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Welcome to the Impact Farming Show. I am so excited to have Billi J. Miller on the show. And Billi is a photographer, author, speaker, mom, and wife to a fourth generation farmer. Welcome, Billi.
It's a mouthful. Thank you very much.
Yes. I am so excited to have you on the show. I have been social media friends with you for quite some time. I've read your books and I've been awaiting this interview. So welcome.
Yay, I'm so excited to meet you too.
Good. Okay, so I know many people follow you on social media and we see your posts. The great thing with this interview is I can say, who is Billi J. Miller? Did you grow up on a farm?
No.
Okay,
no.
Tell us a little bit about you and your journey.
Sure. No, I absolutely didn't. I was not raised on a farm. I was raised first in a very small town for my elementary school years in Saskatchewan. After that, from junior high to high school, I graduated in Lloydminster, on the border of Alberta and Saskatchewan, about 20-some thousand people, size city.
Okay.
And immediately after high school, I did what many people did. In 1993, I was trying to remember when I graduated, and I booked it to the city. And I spent 10 years in Calgary University and then working in the private sector.
Okay.
And then 6 years following that in Edmonton working for the provincial government. So not a farm girl.
Not a farm girl. So I'm going to take a leap of faith here and guess that you ended up in the farming community because of a boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a boy involved there.
How'd you meet your husband?
Out fishing him on Green Lake, Saskatchewan.
Oh, excellent. Good.
That's what I like to tell people. I met Dean through a mutual family friend in northern Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Someone who was our now neighbor, coincidentally enough, but I knew him through my family for a lot of years. And I was on a family fishing trip with my aunt and uncle. This particular neighbor, who was a friend of theirs, also brought this gentleman named Dean Miller up to the lake. He kind of had this idea that we might be an okay match.
Oh.
And
this was a blind date?
Apparently.
Okay. You didn't even know at the time? Okay.
And that's up for debate. But anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, and so anyway, we met, and the rest, 14 months later, we were married, and I was living on the farm.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so I think that when you do not grow up on a farm and you move to a farm and join a farming community, I always think that we have a different perspective. I don't know if you appreciate it a little bit more because it's not the norm. You don't take it for granted.
Right.
What do you love most about farming and farm communities?
I 100% agree with you, actually. And the first thing when I came there was exactly that word, that community, that sense of long-standing tradition, long-standing roots. People knowing each other for a really, really long time, and often their parents and their grandparents. Going to school together their whole life. When a neighbor needs help, you're there. When one farmer gets done before the other one, you go help your neighbors. If a fire in the field, everybody shows up. I mean, just community. You know, community halls, history, events happening at community halls. Everyone all gathering to kind of celebrate the wins, mourn the losses. Just community and long-standing roots.
That's neat. Thanks for sharing that. And I do think when people grow up, they just they don't know any different, and they can't help but take it for granted. I moved into a farming community and I felt the same way too. So thanks for sharing that. I like that.
Welcome.
And I know that's part of your story. So Okay, so this is the part I'm very excited about. I have read both of Billi's books. She has Farmwives 1, Farmwives 2. I ordered them both at the same time, read right through front to back, loved them. So I am so excited for you to share about your books and how it all came about. Where was the idea born?
The idea was born for me, quite honestly, very quickly upon landing in this community that I did.
Okay.
So I was married in 2010. In 2011 came my first daughter, Dean and I's first child. And I was still working a government job at that point. After my year maternity leave was up, I knew I didn't want to go back to an office job full time.
Yeah.
So I kind of harnessed my entrepreneurial spirit and I created a business that I knew was going to work for me. As I said, I wasn't raised on a farm, so I didn't jump in head first and consider myself a farmer too, because I wasn't, you know. My husband was the farmer. I, of course, did everything to support that, and, you know, as often when you're married to a farmer, your life it's a lifestyle, you know, or when you're a farmer yourself, your whole family, it's a lifestyle for you. But I decided to kind of blend my two passions of photography and writing, and I started a photography business. I was photographing the families in the area. I kind of like day in the life farm photos while they're working, harvest, seeding, that kind of thing. I'd follow them around and I said, you know, don't pay attention to me being here. You just do what you're doing and I'll photograph you, and I'd get photo books done up for the families, things like that.
Oh, wow.
As kind of an heirloom keepsake, because again, exactly like you mentioned, people didn't often take the time to do that. You know, they just kind of did what they did and didn't often commemorate it. So I became absolutely enamored and quite frankly in love with the women, in love with the whole community, but I was just dumbfounded at how unbelievably pivotal they were to the community, to not just their families and their homes and all of that, but they kept these farms running, in my opinion. They were absolute pillars of their communities. And I kind of decided, I was freelance writing also for newspapers and writing stories about neighbors and different things like that, just farmers in the area and stories I thought were interesting. And I decided to take it a step further. And I thought, I'm going to write a book about these women. And I'm going to write a book about the women in my community. And so I asked a few more that were in the first book, but I landed on 17 of them. And they were all between the ages of 55 and 90 and all filled that, what I would call traditional farm wife role. And I felt like they needed to be celebrated and honored and held up to their communities for everything that they've done.
That's fantastic. And you know, I read both of the books and they're both so amazing and very unique in their own. That's a traditional farm wife. And you have your second book, and it's a little bit different. And you know, there was times when I was reading through Farmwives, the first book, that it just really hit home, and it made me think of my grandma and being at that kitchen table and everything she did, and just. I just absolutely love that book, and it was just so amazing.
Something that was really important for me to do this. So the book includes 17 women and 17 questions. And I asked them all the same 17 questions about their lives and their farm. What was the best part, the hardest part? How old were you when you got married? How many children? But I included photographs of them sitting at their kitchen table or feeding cows, in the case of Linda Amadrew, doing whatever it is they were doing. But I really wanted to include handwritten recipes too, because like it was touching. It's something that reminded a lot of the families of their moms or their grandmas. And I think the most important part I was able to do in this book too is, as you know, like those generations often weren't from a generation where they heard thank you a lot, or you know, what they meant to their families, what all of their work and dedication meant to their families. And I wanted them to hear that. I wanted them to see that. And at least two of the women before I started the book asked me, why do you want me to be in this book? Would you want to interview me? I haven't done anything. I'm just a farm wife. And I thought, just a farm wife? That's why I did it. And so with the families who were able to be reached, I contacted them and I asked, what is the impact your mother has had on your life? And so I got some really touching submissions from them, and I was able to put it in the book, and that meant everything to me, really. So
that's amazing. When I finished that book, I wanted more. And I'm like, Billi needs tall order right away, but I said Billi needs to really write a book about every farm woman across Canada and across each province. I just wanted more because I don't know, as farmers, it's such a unique lifestyle, and it maybe just reminds you of moms and grandmas, and it just felt good reading that, and I just wanted more.
Thank you.
So
that's awesome.
I'm expecting another 10 to 20 books. Okay. Just so you know.
I'll work on it.
Oh, good. Okay, so that is Farmwives, the first book.
Yeah, Farmwives in Profile.
Farmwives in Profile. Excellent. And you have Farmwives 2. Was that a natural progression? Can you share on that one a little bit?
Absolutely. I always knew there was going to be a Farmwives 2.
Okay.
I knew that there had to be a Farmwives 2.
Good.
And like I said in the first book, I focused on women. Their ages were between 55 and 90. And they were these kind of selected women from my community. Some said no, they were a little too shy. There would have been more, but they were within a broad age range, but still they filled that traditional role.
Yes.
There absolutely had to be a Farmwives 2. I knew that. I knew I didn't fit into that box of traditional farmwives when I moved onto our farm and in our community.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't. I knew I was kind of finding my own way and figuring out, how I wanted to do the life. I know a lot of other women were too. But on the other side of that, I also heard many people say, oh, well, if you're doing one of the younger generations, you won't find any traditional farmwives anymore. And I thought, I kind of considered that a competition, or a challenge. So I did. I brought in the scope for the second book. I wanted to know how things looked. On farms today. How are Canadian farms moving forward into the future? And I did title it still Farmwives 2, and once you get into the second book, you'll realize there are many women who didn't agree with the title, didn't consider themselves that title.
Yeah.
But lucky for me, still wanted to be in the book because they wanted to show that. And I wanted to communicate that story also. Nobody labels us anymore, luckily, and we're able to kind of fulfill our own roles in our houses, in our families, in our farms, in our lives, and that's the beauty of where we are now, and that's the beauty of the women coming before us, allowing us to be in that place now.
Yes.
And so just as these women had their celebration and had their opportunity to be held up to their communities, I wanted to celebrate a whole group of new women as well. Excellent. So I broadened it. And did you want me to talk the details?
Yeah, absolutely.
I broadened it, and number one, the women are within their 20s to 50s, so another broad age range, but within the younger generations. And I also expanded it. The women in my first book were all kind of from my home community, so they were from East Central Alberta. Okay. The women, thanks to the wonders of social media, I was able to reach out. And I reached out in women in ag groups on Facebook, Twitter, all different kinds of things. Once I had a concrete book to kind of show people, I'm an Alberta author looking for, subjects for my second book, people were willing to respond easier and were more comfortable responding. So a whole gamut of women kind of came forward interested in being in the second book, and I was so lucky. Nice. So but there are a lot of differences in the second one too. So
yeah, it's really neat. And both books are phenomenal. I love the celebration of the traditional farm wife, and I love let's take a look at the farm wife now. How do families, how does the woman of the family define herself? What does that all look like? So they're so similar, but so very different.
They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really are. And I was kind of scared about that part of it too, because it caused way more heavy review for me before I was willing to let that second book go out into the world.
Yeah.
I was really, really honest in the second book as well. I did a lot more of my own personal writing in the second book than I did the first.
Okay.
But because I came from outside, because I came from, not a farming background, I kind of noted, I guess you could say, I noted a lot of things that happen and occur in farm life and farm businesses and that kind of thing that I guess you could say, that happened and were typical.
Yeah.
But it would never happen in the city. For example, if you lived in the city and if you were married in your 30s and 40s, you wouldn't be living in a house owned by your in-laws.
No.
For example,
No.
Different things like that. So, and a number of different things happened too in Dean and I's life in particular. We had lost one of my husband's very best friends to a vehicle accident, and he left his wife and 3 daughters and a farm to deal with and contend with. And so we experienced that loss, and it made us really look at our lives, as it made everyone in our community look at their lives in a very different way, I think. In that, are we okay? Are we set up in a way that's proper and right? And does it protect everyone in our family? And, we thought of very hard questions. And that happened at a time when I was writing the book and when I was working on that. And so I kind of was writing Farmwives 2 with a new filter in my brain, because that loss, that death really, really affected Dean and I.
Okay. Yeah.
And that really affected Dean and I, and it still does to this day. And so just seeing things that his wife, our good friend Rebecca, dealt with, really helped me kind of write the book in a new way.
Yeah.
And she provided, so that's some of the major differences of this book. She provided an interview in this book.
Yeah, I remember her.
And I get letters and emails, to this day about her honesty and her candor, talking about her experience and explaining, like, here are some things that happened, here is some advice I would give farm families today, men and women, and how they can, deal with things a little bit better. Maybe they thought they were prepared. They thought they had all their T's crossed and I's dotted, and sometimes you don't, no matter how much you think you do.
Yeah.
Elaine Fraze is, especially, now that we're in Manitoba talking, an amazing person, huge asset to this province, and someone I've been lucky enough to meet at a couple of conferences too. And I know you've had her on here, but she submitted a piece for this book for me. And of course, not really advice, but just out of her breadth of knowledge, she kind of offered a bit of a section on, here's some things you can keep in mind when you're trying to set your family up for success.
Excellent.
As a farm woman, I spoke to a lawyer and I spoke to a financial analyst. And I mean, that's really, I think, important pieces that I guess the women of older generations, sometimes they weren't always conditioned, I guess, to, maybe I better make sure I have a visa in my name to maintain my credit history. Just different things like that. There were newer issues I really wanted to touch on in Farmwives 2 that I didn't touch on in the first book.
Well, and I think because of succession and progression and timelines, there would be new issues that were different from the traditional farm wife generation, right? And
I think so.
I like their hard issues, and it's so amazing that the women opened up, because you know what? At the end of the day, we always think we're so unique in our farming issues and challenges and family. At the end of the day, everybody is very much the same. And chances are, if somebody's having a problem or a concern or a fear or et cetera, other people share in that. And I love that you included some of that hard stuff in there.
Thank you. And that's something I honestly, like, when I came into the life myself too, my husband and I were 34 when we met. I think that's another big part of, the filter, the lens I was coming at this book with. And, we were both, I had been working for had my own career for a very long time and was financially self-sufficient, that kind of thing. So to make that step to let go of that government job, that government pension, that kind of thing, was a concern, right?
Yeah.
But I was living in a completely different location now. And so, a change kind of had to happen. And so, but I needed to do it in a way that I was comfortable with. And coming with that came a whole set of questions that I knew for sure I couldn't be the only one wondering these things. I couldn't be the only one wondering, like, okay, well, should my name be on the land? Am I okay wondering that? Like, who do I talk to about this kind of stuff? It's concerning stuff, and it's you don't always know who to talk to. And I thought, if I could provide something where I asked 24 women from all over the country, from all different kinds of farms, these questions, what kind of a resource could that be for women to just read their answers and say, wow, does that, like, that makes me feel less alone. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one in that position, or that's interesting to see how they navigated their way through it. Maybe we could try something like that. Or, so I'm very proud of how it turned out.
I'm very proud of you for writing these books. They're fantastic. So I am curious. I've put in a request for Farmwives books, 3 to 20.
Okay. Woo.
No pressure.
Okay.
I'm just bugging. I am curious though. What is next? Is there another book?
Yeah, there will be.
Good.
There for sure will be. I remember thinking prior to writing Farmwives too that after this book, I need to take a break from, you know, just the farming books. I need to, you know, write a book about fishermen or fisherwomen or, you know, something else. Like, I need to kind of break out of it. But, you know, I'm so in love, just as I fell in love with our community, you know as well as I do, the online agricultural presence is unbelievable.
Yes.
Do More Ag, at just about every speaking event that I do, I try to bring them up. I wrote about them in my second book because I wanted people to know about that foundation that started. The community that is online on social media is really, really strong and really, really powerful. And it's, I'm in love with it, you know, and it's just put me in contact with so many amazing people that I just want to keep on writing about, to be honest.
Good.
So there will absolutely be more books.
Good.
It may or may not always be about farming, and it may or may not always be about women, but yeah, there are going to be more books for sure.
Excellent. We are all very happy. So you are also working on a project.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that series?
Absolutely. I gave myself 2 years. I kind of gave myself a limit. I said for 2 years, I'm not going to write a new book. After the release of Farmwives 2, I really want to I want to let these books live, and I don't want to, it's kind of like you feel like if you start another book, you put them to bed. And I don't want to put these 2 books to bed. I've started speaking, and I'm so honored to be asked to come here to the Manitoba Farm Women's Conference and other conferences I've spoken at where it connects these women together and empowers them and builds them up, and you get to hear how everyone else has you know, created their role on their farm and in their life, and what do you do? And I love hearing their stories. And so I want to just really kind of go with these books and let them kind of take me where they'll take me. And speaking is something I'm doing a lot more of in the next couple of years, and I want to keep doing that. I want to keep on talking to more women. I want to get these books into more people's hands, and because I do think they're a positive thing. I think that they help these women see how very valuable they are, and that's so important to me. And that's whether you're a farm wife or not. You don't have to be a farm wife to appreciate them.
No.
And in fact, that's something I wanted to bring up with the first book, the second book. The very first question I asked these women in the second book was, what is your opinion of the term farm wife, and do you consider yourself to be one? Because quite frankly, a lot of them did say no.
That's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question, and I needed them to have the opportunity to answer that. I mean, there are women in this book, Megs Reynolds, Farmer Megs, who doesn't know her? You know, she is amazing. And I've loved watching her blow up on, you know, not just Ag Twitter, but social media in our community, because the things that she does, for example, to advocate for our industry and to call politicians out to her farm, to talk about the issues that we have to deal with. I just love seeing everything that she's doing. And she is in the book. And I remember finally getting the nerve up to ask her, quite frankly. And I remember thinking to myself, oh boy, she's not going to want to do this. She's going to be like, farm wife? Who are you calling a farm? You know? And she said she was honored, and I was so thrilled to have her in it because she explained, you know, she talked very honestly about that. Sherilyn Nagel's in it. So many women are in it. But on the other side of that, it's also women that are very proudly still just as traditional as their foremothers were, you know, for lack of a better word. And I think that's beautiful. You know, I don't want women to pit themselves against others. I don't want us to argue about titles. We decide what we do.
Yes.
And we decide what makes us happy. And like I said in my speech today, a happy and fulfilled woman, I mean, we're half the sky, and we have every right to that happiness and fulfillment as anyone else.
Absolutely.
And it's us that decides how that happens.
I love that. One of my favorite sayings, and I've used it before, is you do you.
Absolutely.
If you're happy, you're going to be a better wife, mom, et cetera, et cetera.
Person.
So you do you, and don't worry about what everybody else is doing. And you know, actually, I found as I was flipping through this book, I'm like, ooh, how's she going to define herself? Actually, that was one of the questions I look forward to, because I think a lot of women of our generation struggle with that, right?
Yeah.
We're all different and unique. As a generation, we're different.
Yeah.
And it was really neat to see some people loud and proud, I'm a farm wife.
Yeah.
Others that didn't want to wear that title. So it was really neat. And I think any woman reading this, I think it just gives you a confidence and maybe a bit of a grounding in your feeling on that word, right?
That's
you
right.
go through, you read, you go, oh, others feel that same way. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you know, another point that's kind of important to me to make too is because I think that there are some people who kind of, you know, if they don't read the books and if they have no idea what they're about, or if they don't know my story, don't know why I wrote them, it came from a place of such respect and such love for where I live now. And something to consider, and something for, I think, the people out there to think about is if you're in a place where you feel if someone calls you a farm wife, you feel it's derogatory, you know, or if it's just not a title that sits well with you, that's absolutely fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you belittle that title, and if you speak down of it, you are belittling women who wear the title on their sleeve.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I want to connect us more than, well, I do this and I think everyone else should do this.
Yes.
You know, we're all different. Two of my absolute best friends, Laura and Rebecca, I'll name them because they're both in the book, of course, who decided to be in this book. They are of my generation. I'm older than both of them. And they are two, Rebecca was, as she says, she's not a farm wife anymore, heartbreakingly. She loved it. She loved absolutely everything about it. And Laura still does too. And what is wrong with that? There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Their families are so blessed to have them. And, you know, my cousin is another woman in this book who farms down near Tabor with her husband. Okay. The way she, you know, looks after her family and her farm with her heart is something to really look up to. And, you know, that traditional role may not be something for everyone, but for the people it is their role. Like you said, you do you.
You do you, yeah.
So, yeah.
And I love that, you know, and it just, that we could go on and on. That's stay-at-home mom, working mom, that title. But also, I mean, we're each born with our own interests and gifts and strengths and weaknesses and desires, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of goes into that. Let's just, you do you.
Absolutely.
And don't judge. Respect everybody for their choices, right?
I think so.
That's kind of my take. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. No. You're always going to have a little bit of, you know, begrudging or whatever. I mean, people are people. But at the end of the day, these women all agreed to be in these books for their own reasons. And in the second book, maybe it was some different reasons for some of the women, but they still agreed.
Yeah.
And they're, as far as I know, they're all very happy and proud to be in this book. And I'm so proud and happy to have included them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Thank you.
So you have amazing women in these 2 books. I loved reading about every one of them. I'm curious, has any one of the women stuck with you?
Yeah. They all have in their own way.
Okay.
Definitely. And like with this first book, they're my neighbors. So, I mean, they stick with me. I bowl with one,
Okay, yeah.
They're my neighbors, they're my friends, they're my community. The second book, I didn't know these women before for the most part, but there is one woman in my first book, Edith Paul, who is the first farm wife in the first book, and she's someone I didn't know prior.
Okay.
So there were only 2 women in this book who were kind of referred to me and were from outside of my community, and Edith Paul was one. And she was 84 at the time of her interview.
Oh, wow.
And her husband was sitting beside her at the kitchen table when I met them. And she was, I had called her in advance and I had scheduled the interview, and I kind of gave her a little bit of information as to who I was on the phone, and I ended up going to her house and sitting at the table with her. And, they were married over 65 years.
Wow.
And they finished each other's sentences. She laughed at him, and he told jokes, and once he got warmed up, he kind of started swearing a little bit.
Oh, one of the charmer type? Or?
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
He was just the funniest man.
Oh.
And she laughed at him like they just got together last week.
Oh.
Like, she still laughed at all his jokes, and I have no idea how many times she heard them. Like, could you imagine?
Yes, yeah.
And
oh, that's lovely.
The sweetest couple, and they just got inside my heart, and they just and Albert sadly did not live to see the book published, but I am still close to Edith, and I go visit her frequently, and my girls know her, and my husband knows her, and I visit and we talk on the phone, and she is unbelievable to me, and she's just kind of become this person that's so very special, and I know I'll keep a relationship with her as long as possible. So yeah, that's because I didn't know her before. I'd say that she's just kind of become an adopted grandmother to me, and I'm so lucky to have met her.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I can just imagine the relationships you formed, new and strengthened people, relationships with people in your community. I could just imagine, wow, the experience. And that leads to my next question for you. Has writing these books changed you?
I thought a lot about that question, and I feel like more than changed me, I feel like this process has more kind of brought me into who I was meant to be. I talked a little bit today in my keynote speech that when I was a young girl, I used to write pretend books, I don't know why, it was just a thing. I'd write stories and I would draw my own cover and I'd staple them, and I was young.
That's amazing.
And so I think there's always been, I've always kind of dreamt of it, but you probably you live in the city, you work for the government, you think it's just going to be a pipe dream, And my life moved in this direction to where I could start a business doing my complete passions. If I was still in the city, I wouldn't even have started a job as a photographer because it's so saturated and they didn't need it anymore, I was able to create a niche for myself and follow what is truly, it's just, I overuse the word, but it's passion. Like, I love what I do, and I 100% put my heart into it. And these books have just, so that it hasn't changed me, but it's changed me in the sense that it's, I've just finally become who it was I was meant to be. And I'm doing what I absolutely love. And I wear my heart on my sleeve. And anyone who has seen me talk about this project or, in a speech or whatever, I will get emotional because it has been really important for me to be able to do this and to honor these women, and I'm just super proud of it. So I think more than change me, it's just it's brought me home, I guess, is a way to put it.
That is the perfect way
really
to sum that up.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were so very lucky that you have found your purpose, found your home. Mm-hmm. There's many others out there that would love to do what you do. It might not be writing books, it might not be photography, but they have a passion, they have a dream. Do you have any words of wisdom for people chasing their dream or that would love to chase their dream?
Yeah. And it may be a full-time job, it may be not, but there was another really good presentation today by Farmwives, and they were talking about things you have to do in your life to kind of balance yourself and balance your life and that. And, I'm not, if you have a dream of, writing a book or, doing whatever it is that you have this dream of doing, maybe you can or maybe you can't turn it into a full-time position or a full-time job. But do it for yourself. Do it as a hobby. Give yourself that time to do things that you love. Do things that make you happy and light you up. Spend time with the people it is that inspire you and make you feel good. Spend less time judging what we're doing, feeling like we're not enough. Spend less time feeling like we're not enough. Spend more time with people that fill you up. And build other people up.
Love it.
That's made me, the fact that I've been able to, help these women see their worth and see their, really feel appreciated has been a gift to me more than anything else. And so I think just, like you said before, it's true. You do you, figure out what makes you happy in your life, and your kids will see that. Your kids will honor that. Your husband will. If you're just on your own, if you're starting a farm by yourself, it doesn't matter. Just do what it is that makes your heart feel good. It's so important.
I agree, and I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you for those words of wisdom. We are going to wrap the interview up. I could sit here and talk to you for hours and hours. Yes. I would love to connect the audience with you. If people would
I'd love that too.
Love to connect with you on social media. You have 2 amazing books. If they want to find their books, how can they find you and your books?
Okay, awesome, and I so appreciate that. They're available online through all major online retailers. So you could find them on Amazon, you could find them on Chapters, Indigo, that kind of stuff, by going to farmwivesbook.com. And you'll also find links to me on there. But I am very active on social media, and I love any and all connection with people. I love seeing how other people are doing their farm life and everything else. And I love just the opportunity to try to get my books out into the hands of other people.
Yes.
And, sharing the stories of these women and sharing how special they are. So on Facebook, I'm Billi J Miller Books, Billi. There's no E on that. So Billi J Miller Books on Facebook, and just Billi J Miller on Instagram and on Twitter.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And your website is?
My website is farmwivesbook.com, and my new online blog series is thewomenamongus.com.
Love it.
Yeah.
Connect with Billi. I encourage you guys to buy the books. I found they were fantastic reads. Absolutely loved them. They just heartwarming. So if you can connect with Billi, get her books. You will not regret it. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
So on that note, I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of our show, our audience, and myself to thank you for joining us on Impact Farming.
You are more than welcome.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.